So after work today, I went and gathered up Kilua and I delivered him to the pet hospital where currently he is awaiting cremation. Unlike with Gon, this time I got to go through the whole process, held him up to the very ending when I had to hand him over to the doctor. Even picked out the box that his ashes will go with, a different box than Gon's, so that, they don't look the same or I don't confuse them. And it'll fit Killua very well. And it's kind of a plain box so that I can put something on it. It's a blank canvas. Put something there for him. It feels one part, you know, one part things feel still and calm. He's not suffering anymore. Well, I learned that he wasn't actually. It was very helpful. As he was in his final hours, I learned that he wasn't really suffering. He was going in and out of a dreamlike state, sort of flickers of awareness, but at that point, his body had shut down anything besides just like breathing. So he wasn't feeling any pain, he wasn't feeling any hunger or anything like that. He was just sort of drifting in and out of consciousness, able to recognize the feel of my hand and the scent around him and my voice. And so he at first he was meowing a lot, and then I wrapped my hand around the bottom of his head and he suddenly got very calm and just laid there. And yeah, I'm gonna miss him a lot. Missing him already. I came back home and part of me instinctively looked inside of the little pillow bed that he liked to sit in and looked into the pet room to see if he was in the corner sleeping and waiting to see if his little face was going to pop up or hiding behind my monitor. Yeah, it's just me, Erdwin, Erdrick, and Numa now. Yeah. Right now, Erdwin is on my lap. She likes the warmth. But she also likes it when I pet her while she's like this, in this spot. These three are my remaining, living family in the most conventional sense of living. I'm sure Killua is happy in cat heaven. Yeah. But now I have these three to keep with me. So, I just wanted to talk about some other things. I'm thinking of a proper. Is it eulogy? I think it's eulogy. I think an elegy is a piece of music, while a eulogy is written. Something similar I did for Gon, just going through more memories for Killua. I'm trying to think of all of them. When you get so integrated with someone as just part of your family, part of your life, you remember more of the lasting feeling of just them being casually around and there. But I'm trying to think of those really key, those really, those really those really pivotal core moments with Killua and I. Oh, Killua. When he was little, he would get these little cold sores on his lip, but eventually he grew out of that. And then he would have like issues with certain food, and then there would be another medical thing that would pop up, and then we'd have to find a solution for that. But and then the teeth thing, very very susceptible, like nothing we could do about that, very susceptible to gum disease. And both him and Gon, I know I've discussed that before, but it was each time it was, finding a patch to help carry him forward, and he lasted 9 long years. 9 long years. All the way till yesterday. And I couldn't be prouder of him. Yeah. Things are already a lot quieter, that's for sure. Things are more still. He was a lot like Gon, that he brought a lot of energy to the place, a lot of personality, his insistence, and yeah, everything is a lot quieter. I feel the weight of the loss of his presence. Yeah. And feel the weight of when he was here and the weight of when he isn't. Today, while I was going to the pet hospital, other person said all kinds of concerning things, like other person tried to pin responsibility for them paying off their own debt on me, saying like basically just telling me that I'm working so that they can pay off their debt, and saying like, as soon as you start working hard enough, as soon as you start working enough hours, I can start paying off my debt, and things like that. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I am not working so you can pay off your debt. It is your responsibility to pay off your debt. The money I'm making, the account that money is going in, that is not under my name. That is your account still. That is still your money. And what debt you have is yours. Every cent I make from my job ends up going into that account, because it's the account that this place was registered under. And I don't think they would quite like having 2 separate cards, so I'm stuck with that for the moment. For my commissions, I'm gonna open my own bank account and get money in there separately. That's if I ever get commissions, Probably not. Maybe saying that, the inverse will happen and I'll get, I don't know. But yeah. That irritated me quite a bit while on the car ride. Just hearing that, like, the other person trying to pin that responsibility on me to pay off their debt. You're not working hard enough for me to pay off my debt As soon as you start working more hours and enough time, I can start paying off my debt. And, the other person didn't really offer any ways that, they were going to start or work on it. They were just trying to pressure me to work more so that they could start paying off their debt. Instead of saving money and finding, I know that the other person is not. The other person lives in a nice, cozy apartment with a rent of $1,500 a month, but lies about living in the car. The other person, well, now that Kilua has passed away, is going to start saving money on the pet hospital, care plans and things like that. So that's more money in the other person's pocket. But I know the other person is lying about canceling all the premium subscriptions to the various things. I have proof of it. It's clearly obvious that, they're not saving anywhere. But here's something I would like to say, in that the only way I'm working enough for you to pay off your debt is that I'm going to start making enough money to pay for things on my own. And you can have your own account and use your own money however you wish. But I am not working to try and compensate for your decisions and your choices and how you decided to handle situations and money. That debt is yours and yours alone, and it is not my responsibility to get you or to help you pay that off. That is for you to do. My responsibility is to find a way to get to the point where I can fully take on my own responsibilities and payment and disconnect from your account entirely. How long it'll take to get there, I do not know yet. I do not know yet. Yeah. That art group that I mentioned before, in a previous journal, I don't remember exactly how I described it in that journal, but I joined a group, artists, Twitter, socials, things like that. I quit it today. I went ahead and left. Yeah. How do I phrase this? I don't want to get too into depth to it, but basically it just, not the right crowd for me. Not the, not quite the, not exactly sure how to put it, but today I saw something that, disturbed me a bit on that. And so after I was done, I just, quietly withdrew, left it behind, and you know what? I do feel much better ever since doing that. So that doesn't mean I'm quitting on that whole thing. I'm going to find, mark my words, I'm going to find some place, somewhere. It was just that kind of place where, how do I describe it? It's just that's a bit of an inappropriate word. I'm not going to use that. Everyone's really feeling each other up, if that makes sense. It's a circle where, what's the word? Everyone's mostly there just to pat each other on the back and give nice compliments and, you know, not really, not really like, there's not a great range of conversation to be had, I'll say. And, yeah, I just did not mesh well. If you've listened to these journals or gone through them, or you probably know how I speak and think at this point, and it's not like it's exactly a mystery anymore, I'll say. But yeah. So I just went ahead and left. Just boop, backed out. Left it behind and it's interesting. Will I go into it? I don't know. Let me think. The the idea of just like sort of hive mindish mob mentality of just dozens of people saying the same thing. It was really interesting. I won't go into it exactly, but there was something there that was just like, okay, so, this just isn't the place for me. So I decided to back out quietly. But, yeah. So that's done. Moving on. I don't really have any ill will towards anyone there. They don't have my fondness, but they don't have my, dislike or anything. Just gonna leave them be. And, yeah, I'll find somewhere else. I'll find somewhere else, definitely. It was a big contrast from the other server I joined with my one very good friend. It was interesting. It was interesting while I was there, but yeah, it it's funny to say, but with me, like I like it. Can I say something a bit funny? It's funny to me anyway. I like human beings and I like people. I don't like artists. Does that make sense? Um, not don't like. I'm annoyed, irritated by artists. Excuse me. Oh, I like people and human beings, but I'm not too fond of most artists. I'm not really they kind of irritate me. They kind of annoy me really. They kind of really do. And because you know, people they see what's going on, they see what's going wrong, they find different things and they learn how to grow past it, they learn how to move on. But artists, they love to stew in a certain amount of misery and struggle, self-imposed half the time, or completely capable of evolving and growing, but it becomes sort of an identity. Artists love the pity party, if that makes sense. Uh, Artists love to take on a certain personality, advertise themselves in a certain way, project a certain image to the world. They love to stew in their own anxieties and insecurities and like, what's the word? Kind of glamorize and romanticize struggles and different things like that. And just kind of sit in it. Make that who they are. And I realize that a lot of the time artists will do that because, well, not that they're consciously doing it, but they are fed the feedback of just that makes them interesting. It gets them compliments, it gets them validation. I remember there was a journal where I felt the exact same way. I was scared to be someone who isn't suffering, because then who would I be? Would I still be interesting? Would anybody care, or would they just withdraw, you know? It's there's a certain comfort to being the person who suffers and goes through things, and it gets people to check on you, you know? Or like it gets you about 15 minutes of just like, you know, oh, you're doing so good, or, you know, something like that. And you can keep bringing it up. It feels threatening when that could fade away. Like, who am I now? And I remember, I'll say that again. I remember going through that at the beginning. I was so scared of, no one will help me if they don't think I'm suffering. Am I still interesting? You know, what would I have to talk about if not complaining or being in pain? Who would I be then? And yeah, because when you're doing well, people don't really. Well, I guess that's part of the mindset, right? It's the idea that if you're doing well, then who cares? You know? People look at people who are struggling or are in the middle of things, or depressed, sad, strained, what have you. And, you know, I still feel that feeling, that one of the scariest feelings is improving. Because then what do I have to get people's attention, you know? And I've been trying to figure that out and grow as a person, and to find more ways that I've been trying to become more interesting to myself, because I don't think I'm a very interesting person. But maybe that's part of the problem. If I could become interesting to myself, who would I be without struggle? Am I that person who draws a line every day? Am I that person who draws a line every day now on a piece of paper, instead of being the one who, you know, can't do anything, is just low energy all the time, burnt out, you know? Which one will people gravitate more towards, you know? That or the person who draws a line on a piece of paper every day? You know, you tell me. Which one do you think is more interesting? I think in the short term, the struggle, the pain is interesting, but how much more so becoming interested in yourself, you know? Not in a selfish or self-serving way, but in just a basic way that's just there was a there was someone who said something the other day. What was it? It was, if you can be comfortable with, then you can be comfortable with everything. Oh, I'll have to find it. It really stuck with me, that quote. Mm. The feeling of it is still with me, and the kind of internalized message of it, but the actual words are missing, and those are important as well. I'm gonna have to find it again. I'm trying to remember it. Let me think. Uh, if you could, if you can. Ah, it's so close. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I'll leave it be for now. But it's kind of funny. It's like one of the reasons to be scared of improving is the feeling that, well, people will think you're fine all the way and then just say you've got it. You don't need anything, and then just kind of drop you off, you know? I guess it's a kind of craving for attention. I know what that's like. But is it possible to say, I'm not in abject suffering anymore, or constant pain, or, but also, you know, I still want help and support, but I'm not going to greet you by saying, you know, I'm in misery, I can't accomplish anything I want, I'm stressed or whatever, burnt out, depressed, whatever it may be. I would like to put forward instead that in a lot of ways I'm improving and getting better and not where I was before. But also, I hope you'll continue to support me and, you know, look out for me. Maybe not as a friend or anything like that, but, you know, is it all right for me to say, you know, please don't go away? I'm not in anguish, and I don't want to be, you know. I'm getting better. I'm improving. Here's my progress, you know. I've never much enjoyed referring to myself as an artist. I don't really like calling myself that. I've always just liked seeing myself as someone who draws. or, you know, I draw because it's what I'm best at. Not necessarily an artist per se, you know. If I get hired for that, I guess it would be on my resume as that. But personally, I wouldn't identify myself as an artist or anything like that, or as a composer, or, excuse me, as a writer, or anything like that. Even though I do love to do those things, but those things, they're not really hobbies or passions for me. They're like organs in my body, you know? I have to do those things, like breathing and eating. I have to, or I'll just fade away. Does that make sense? It's like having a significant other who you idolize and put on a pedestal, treat with all this like over reverence, having to dress up every day, versus having a significant other who you just dress in like pajamas around. You get used to the way they breathe, the way they move, their habits, their patterns, their weirdness, their oddness, their eccentricities, when they're grumpy, when they're moody, and you know you can go to them when you're grumpy and moody. And that's the kind of relationship I want to have with drawing and the different things I do. I don't want it to be some idol I have to perform and dress up for, or for it to be some big show or lots of preparation I have to walk into, some event. I want it to be that significant other who I can go to when I'm tired, I'm not motivated, I'm not inspired, I'm just grumpy, moody, whatever have you, any mood, and I can just go and just do it. It just becomes a part of me internally. It's no longer a hobby, it's not a passion, it's like being familiar with a lover or a friend or a best friend or whatever have you. It's like a part of you. It's part of your breath. It's part of your sight. It's a bit hard to describe at the moment, but I'm sure I'll think of something better eventually. But, yeah. After I'm done here, I think I'll play some Metroid Prime remastered and imagine Killua on my lap. I do wish I had started that sooner, so there would have been more chances for him to sit on me, sit on my lap while moving that controller around. But I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I did that for him as one of the last things. And you know, I want to dedicate playing through the game to Killua, because he was always my baby. Him and Gon, they were always my babies who sat on my lap while I played video games. Right through to the end. And I want to. I really do want to. It's just, I can feel it bubbling up inside me. And that's exciting. So I'll go ahead and end today's journal here.